A couple of weeks ago, I did a review of the Roman Props Flashgun 8, which is a replica of the Skywalker family's lightsaber, as it appears in the movies The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. The Roman Props Flashgun 8 is just an empty hilt, however, and I want to turn it into a fully functioning NeoPixel lightsaber. Now, there's about a million different ways I could go about this, but after looking at a lot of different Graflex lightsabers online, I found what I wanted to do. There's a guy named Martin Bayer, not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, that has designed a chassis he calls the Metal Master. I've linked his website, MB-Sabers.com, in the video description, as well as his YouTube channel if you'd like to check his work out. Anyway, the design of his Metal Master chassis is amazing and exactly what I want to have for my Graflex. After discovering his work, I began checking out all the information that he has on his site on how to build one of his Metal Master chassis, and began by ordering just the parts for the emitter. I bought the emitter housing piece itself from his site, which is made out of aluminum, along with the emitter assembly kit he sells, and then had to order the remainder of the parts from shapeways.com. Buying all the parts at once to build one of these is very expensive, which is why I'm doing it in stages. Not to mention, if you don't already have the tools needed, you're going to have to buy those too. Since I'm buying the parts in stages, yes, that means there's going to be more videos in the future as I'm able to purchase more parts and put them together. I started off work on my emitter by first separating all the Emitter Add-On pieces I'd ordered from Shapeways from one another. Most of them come as sets of pieces which have little metal rods, I guess, essentially connecting them together, which is how you see the 3D renderings of them on Shapeways. Yes, these are all made of metal. All my Emitter Add-On parts are made of polished bronze, silver, steel, with the exception of this piece here, which is called the Emitter Glass Eye Adapter, and I got it in natural brass. Every piece has several different materials you can choose to have that part made from, including plastic. Plastic parts are, of course, the least expensive option. So anyway, I first had to cut these pieces apart from one another. On MB-Sabers.com, he recommends using a metal cutting wheel on a Dremel for this, but I didn't own a Dremel just yet, so I used a metal cutting wheel on my 4.5-inch angle grinder instead. I held the pieces with a pair of vice grip pliers and then cut them free of each other with the grinder. Once I had all the pieces cut, I began what is the most time-consuming part of this whole process: sanding. I used a piece of 220 grit sandpaper to smooth everything out from cutting them apart and to remove the slight texture the 3D printing process leaves behind on each piece. Getting it all perfectly sanded off, I think, is pretty much impossible, but fortuitously, I really like how the parts look with a little bit of that bronze coloring still on it. I feel like it gives it a used, weathered look, which is how all the best stuff in Star Wars looks anyway. After what I'm going to, I guess, call a fair amount of time sanding, I moved on to cleaning out all the little cutout sections on each piece. You may already be aware of this, but after printing, there is often little bits of material left in these little gaps. So I used the tip of an awl to get in there and clean those areas out, which was fairly quick and easy to do. I then moved on to cleaning out and widening all the holes on all the parts that are going to be used for the brass rod detailing coming up later. On the MB-Sabers site, he has pictures of several emitters he's designed and put together, which you can, of course, copy or use for ideas for your own custom look. I did not have any drill bits small enough for this job, And not to mention, the steel parts I ordered can't be drilled through easily anyway. So my only option was to use my awl to get these holes wide enough to insert the 1mm brass rods included in the MB-Sabers emitter assembly kit. It was at this point that I came to the conclusion I needed to purchase the appropriate tools if I was going to do this right. So I went to my local hardware store and bought me a Dremel, along with some of the other stuff I was going to need to build this thing. The drill bits and screw taps that you need are for watch and jewelry making and stuff like that, so I had to go online and order those. While at the hardware store, I picked up some 440 by 1/2 inch long machine screws, which I used to attach this plate to the body of the emitter, and then it was time to start fitting all the detail pieces on. In the assembly manual on MB-Sabers.com, you start with what is called Emitter Add-On B, which are these two pieces here. They go on either side of Emitter Add-On A, which is this guy right here. You first glue these pieces on and then pin them in place using a piece of 1mm brass rod from the installation kit. I chose to use some Gorilla brand super glue and applied a little to the back of the pieces, and using part A to help me position them, set them in place, and then held them for about 30 seconds for the glue to set up enough to hold it there. In the manual, it tells you to then drill through these holes into the emitter body itself for the 1mm brass rods to go in. But when I got to this point, I was still waiting for my drill bits to come in the mail, so I had to skip that step for the moment. To make sure I was ready to start drilling when they did arrive, I placed all the other add-on parts in their appropriate positions, and using my awl, marked where I needed to drill for the M1.6 screws, which hold all the pieces in place. Also, while waiting for my new drill bits to arrive, I grabbed a pair of needle nose pliers and set to work bending some of the 1mm brass rods to create some of the wire details on the emitter. My wire detail making was cut short though, because when I ordered the 3D printed parts for my emitter, I completely neglected to add the little round sensor pieces to my order, which means they'll be coming with the next batch of parts that I end up ordering. Once the drill bits and screw taps arrived, I was able to drill out all the holes by first clamping the emitter to my garage workbench, and then using my cordless drill, very carefully drilled each hole. MB-Sabers strongly suggests you use a drill press for this, but I don't have access to a drill press, so I just took my time and carefully drilled each hole, doing the best I could to keep the drill perpendicular to the emitter as I drilled. I then used the M1.6 screw tap to cut the threads for the screws into each hole, and then screwed all the add-on pieces in place. It was then time to see if my emitter would fit inside my Graflex hilt with all the parts now attached to it. And of course, on the first attempt, it was a little too tight of a fit, which meant I had to remove all the different add-on parts, sand down the back sides of them some more, and try again. After an hour or two of test fitting and sanding, it finally fit in the way it's supposed to, and I was done. Well, at least for the time being. Well, what do you think? Am I crazy for undertaking this project? I mean, I could just buy a lightsaber that's already all put together and stuff, but to get one like I'm hoping this one will turn out would cost way more money than I would ever want to pay. Anyway, if you'd like to see how my lightsaber turns out in the end, stay tuned to the channel because more videos will be coming as I purchase more parts and put them all together. Alright, I better sign off for now. There's those YouTube things that help me out, which I greatly appreciate. And I also have my Amazon store linked in the video description, where you can check out and purchase all of the tools that I bought to help me do the work I did on my lightsaber emitter. As well as a bunch of other stuff that I've featured in past videos. Thanks so much for sticking around all the way until the end of the video. I love you, and I look forward to seeing you in another video really soon. Bye! We'll catch you later.